I don't care. He's just a miserable asshole. Just get on with it. We're on the air. Hurry up. All right, all right. And now diatribes from the voice of doom. Now here's the voice of doom. Okay? Well, what, did he walk out? He's gone? All right. Well, had some announcer problems and he's kind of copped an attitude. So if you want to be the announcer for diatribes, just send a self-addressed envelope to the address below and we'll send you an application. Uh, just had some announcer problems. And I really wanted to get serious. So we're going to go on with the saga of 2020. And it gets a little bit more complicated now because, well, I left you where I kind of had to take her to the emergency room, my wife, Carla. And I was expecting them to keep her, and they didn't keep her for more than 2 or 3 hours. And I knew that the situation was bad. So I kind of got the gist that it was bad. And they didn't want to even have her in the hospital. And prior to that, I want to backtrack a bit because I had decided to go seek counseling July-ish when I had some extra money. And we were talking and about transgenderism and things of that nature. And I'm like, if I don't do something soon, I probably won't do anything. And then she's like, well, what are you going to do? And it's like, well, I have extra money now, so I'll just take it one thing at a time. So I started getting this hair removal laser from my beard because I figured I don't like shaving anyway, so I can pay to get this done. And it'll cost about $1,200 over a year, so it's not going to, be a big problem. So I started doing that, and then when she started doing it, and she was very, my cosmetologists, I guess you would call them, were very understanding, and they weren't judgmental, and they weren't acting like, oh my God, this guy is. And so I, started getting my hair removed, and then it's like, I guess I called Planned Parenthood because that was the cheapest way to get female hormones, and I wanted to start up on them because I wanted to see what was going to happen and whether if I made my body conform to my mind, maybe I'll be happier. But that's was happening at the same time as my wife was starting to deteriorate, so things got a little shaky, especially when she was still pretty ambulant, you would say, and she was in the living room and we were just sitting around together and she brought up this, I don't know how transgenderism came up. I think when I was taking care of her, I kind of started wearing like palazzo pants and these kind of t-shirts like this because I figured, if I have to be running around, I'm just going to be comfortable. And so she probably was like noticing that I was getting more and more comfortable with just wearing kind of unisexual stuff around. And she's like, well, you're not going to, I don't see you doing anything about this transgender business. And I'm like, well, I am doing something about it. And that kind of got her a little shocked, like, And I said, I'm going to counseling and I've started some hair removal and stuff. And she's like, well, if you're going to do that, I want a divorce. And this was like about a few weeks before it became apparent that she's not going to have a divorce because I have to take care of her, and that's not going to happen. But I just kind of put that in there to show you how convoluted and confusing and stuff everything was starting to get. And I'm going to tell you more about what happened after I started on hormones for about a month or two because it's really interesting and it's a catch-22, and I'll explain that later. Because this whole episode is going to be about catch-22s because when we started deciding that, yeah, we have to do something, we can't just take homeopathics and ginger juice and hope everything goes away. we realized that it was going to be very difficult because she was in pain, and she was in constant pain, and she wanted something more than what you get over the counter for pain. And the point was is they won't give you any strong, first of all, they don't want to give you any opiates at all because they're very loath to give anybody that now because of the addiction factor. So even if you're, just down and I need something, they don't want to give you a strong painkiller. And they won't give you any painkillers at all until you've been diagnosed. Now, that was the first catch-22 that we ran into with the MIC, Medical Industrial Complex, is she needed to get out of pain to make it to the doctor to get diagnosed so that she could get medicine to get out of pain. So that's the catch-22. Believe me, when someone's hurting and they're starting to cry a little bit, it's like, man, I got to do something. And I think there were times, maybe prior to the doctor's appointment, that I did some clandestine things and I found some people just purely out of chance. Just like sometimes the universe will, if you show sincerity in trying to do something, the universe, or God, if you want to call it, will help you. Mystery, God, universe, call it what you will. Nobody can explain it, so it really doesn't matter about semantics to me. Yeah, strange things happen. You meet people and you start talking, and for no reason you say, oh, my wife's really sick, and they happen to be a nurse, and they say, oh, well, if she can't get painkillers, and they give me a number, and I went and met this guy by the gas station somewhere the next morning, and he handed me something kind of clandestine. I'd been involved with marijuana and things like that long enough that I know something is under the table transaction. So I called the lady and I said, I can tell it was kind of almost like a drug deal when I did that, and I want to make sure it's not anything, like heroin or whatever. And she's like, no, it's just THC and CBD, and which I could get myself. Nevada had 3 or 4 pot stores within driving distance. And but my wife kind of treated me like I was a little bit of a hero when I brought her the vial because, it was almost like a placebo. It was like, okay, this is going to help me. And she fell asleep from the CBD, and she was appreciative, and I knew that we had to do more. So finally we go to the doctor. There's going to be 1 or 2 life lessons in here, and they're personal, so you can take them for what they're worth. So when we went to the doctor, she hadn't really gotten any good painkiller, and she was getting a preliminary workup sitting in the office, and she couldn't sit through it, so I was going to take her to the emergency room, and the nurse is like, well, she has blood clots, so you better not give her, salmon and oily fish and leafy green vegetables. And it's like, that's all I've been feeding her for the last month. She's been craving spinach salads, and I've been fixing salmon all different kinds of ways to make it good. And when she said that, my mind clicked to my high school days, and this is a life lesson. My best friend was doing a report for biology class, and it was on vitamin K. And the guy could not get over his research. He had to tell me everything. He had to read me the report over and over, tell me all the details and how, detailed it was, and vitamin K is made from this, and it clots the blood, and it helps when you get a cut, it helps that healing. I mean, you need it to help the healing. It clots the blood, which you need sometimes. And he's like, oh yeah, it's leafy green vegetables and fish oils, and he kept saying it over and over and over again, and I'm like, why does this guy keep on going on with his his report? Why is he drumming it into my head? And then when I got to the doctor, and she said, leafy green vegetables, spinach, and salmon, don't feed her that, I clicked, and I go, oh my God. I was told years ago, I mean, she thought I was crazy. I pretty much had a kind of a little breakdown because I'm like, I knew this. I was told this years ago and I should have known. Because I knew she had blood clots and I'm giving her the exact wrong thing. So that's the road to hell, and that's the life lesson. If you hear somebody like a friend or somebody that you're with and they're harping on about the same thing over and over again for no reason, put that in the back of your mind because you might need it later. I know it's a little bit esoteric, but I found it that, yeah, I'm finding out a lot of things that I didn't know before, and I hope I can carry over these lessons to my next lifetime, because next time I'll pay attention and go, this person is telling me all this stuff and I'm not even asking about it, and he wants to tell me and why, and I'll put it in the back of my brain for later. And try to do that, because it's hard because you really don't know what, but it's just something I learned and I think it's kind of interesting. So she comes home and we proceed to decide another catch-22, which is, if we want treatment and we want everything to be kind of given to us in a way, we have to get hospice. And in order to get hospice, you have to admit you're dying. And she is not going to admit she's dying. That's not going to happen. So, luckily, they have a little out. It's one good thing they have. And it's called palliative care. And keep that word in mind if you're ever with somebody who's stubborn and doesn't want to admit anything. They have a thing called palliative care where you get the hospice services, but you're also kind of saying, I still want to treat my illness. There's some people that say, yeah, I know I'm dying. They told me I'm dying, so let's go to hospice and I'll die. But some people are like, I don't care what they say, I'm not dying and I'm going to get better. So then we got hospice, and then things started to accelerate very, very quickly. Very quickly, because all of a sudden her room, which was, an end table with a cushion air mattress, one of those nice air mattresses for a bed, that's all out. And in comes the hospital bed with the little remote control thing that you can lift it up, and the hospital bed and a little table that she could eat from, and just like a hospital. And I'm going to give you a few tips between now and the end of this, just to tell you some logistics and some little tips that I would do right away if this happened again. If your wife or your spouse or somebody that you're watching deteriorate, if you have to change things like the new hospital beds coming in today, or they're bringing in this stuff because then you'll be more comfortable, use the time when she's not in the room to clear out as much as you can. You can't have too much room. Believe me, you can't have too much room. It'll come to the point where you'll be going, I wish I had more room. And while you're at it, I would buy or get or rig up as many shelves as you can throughout the room. As many shelves as you can. You can't have too many shelves. And that's just getting the room ready, because you're just getting the bed now, and then pretty soon the oxygen tank, the oxygen dispenser will come, and that's a big, huge thing that rolls around. It's like an old amplifier in the bands. And then they bring 4 tanks just in case she wants to go out, which I had a feeling she wasn't ever going to go out to, have a walk. And accessories and bandages and antiseptics and medicines and all kinds of things and bottles, and you have to keep all these bottles, and suddenly, well, I'm going to get to 15 minutes, so I'm just going to kind of drop it off now, but suddenly everything changes. Her room becomes a hospital room, and I realized as I was going that I was running out of room, that no matter how much room you have, you need more. No matter how much storage space or shelf space, it's not going to be enough, believe me. So just do as much as you can to make things that you can store things and have them sorted. You're going to have medicines in a certain order. You're going to have you know, glasses and trays, and this has fruit in it, and this has the cottage cheese he was supposed to be eating, and this has, you know, here's the bandages, and here's the gauze, and here's the, you know, whatever, and just all kinds of stuff. I mean, here's the Pampers or the adult diapers. Here's the mat, you know, little mats you have to put on the bed in case you can't, you know. So all of a sudden it's a hospital room, and next segment I am going to hopefully have a new announcer, and I'm going to get into the real nuts and bolts of how you help someone die, because it gets interesting, and I think I can be helpful for the next person that has to do this, and I'll explain how stupid we were to get ourselves in this position in the first place. So that's it. I'm going to leave it there, and I'll be back with another one. Thanks, everybody.